We are now in the urban features lesson where normally if you were in the southwestern United States, you would be doing buildings and walls. But in Florida, we don't do the walls because they're not really going to be structures that would change the way that the water flows because they are not designed like that. So instead, we'll just do the buildings and follow this lesson to learn how to add the buildings to the layer, digitize the missing buildings, and delete the features that we don't need. So just a note, the building shapefile is going to require 3 attributes. A collapse field, which for South Florida, mostly we'll be using the no collapse unless there's a way that the water impacts can cause the buildings to collapse. That's the only reason you would apply a collapse to a building. We will be using the ARF field and we will not be using the WRF field. So no width reductions. Yes, we'll use ARF. That will take care of the totally blocked buildings and no collapse. So let's start by preparing the map and loading the building shapefile. So to prepare the map, we'll just take a couple of the features that we no longer need or layers that we no longer need off of the map by unchecking them. We can also check the computational domain and zoom to layer. That will zoom us to the entire project. We don't need the grid, so I'll just uncheck the grid. It's in the schema layers. And I also don't need the user layers, so I can collapse all of those. I will be adding, when I add, let's see, we do not need elevation. So if you have elevation, uncheck that and do add or do check the Google map. Now we can grab the shapefile from the project folder. So coastal training, project data, buildings, and drag that onto the map. Oops, I'm sorry. I was supposed to, let me remove that. I wanted to do that a little bit differently. So click the project data group, grab the shapefile and drag it onto the map and maybe make it a little bit brighter. So double click it, go to simple fill, and let's just make that like a super bright green and click OK and OK. And now we'll be able to see those buildings clearly. Back here, after we add the data and prepare the map, the next thing is to digitize the missing buildings. So there are some missing buildings down here in the southeast corner. So if you zoom to that layer and then you click edit on the building polygon, then we're going to add a new toolbar to help us digitize those a lot faster. And then we'll start to add the buildings. Okay, so let's go ahead and get down here and zoom into our area where we need more buildings. Let's see, where are they? They're right here. So I left these buildings off so that you could digitize them. And we will just start by adding the features that we need. The toolbars that we need. So we don't need snapping, so we can turn that off. Just unclick the toggle here. And we need a new toolbar. So if you right click anywhere in this area, you can add the toolbar called Shape Digitizing. I'll click that, and you see here we have this new toolbar here. Now, if we get on the building polygon and activate that layer, we can click the edit pencil, or same thing, you can right click and toggle the editing. And now the editing tools have been activated. So we want this one that's rectangle. So click on that. And then we'll just start adding these missing buildings. So remember, roller wheel zooms you in and out, and it's just going to be very simple. It'll be left click. Whoops, hang on. I'm on the wrong one, sorry. Make sure that you're on add rectangle from extent. Add rectangle from extent. And you'll be left click, move to the opposite corner, right click, and then you can start to fill in the data. 0, 1, 0, enter. And I'm using that tab to move me to the next field. So that's left click, right click, go to the bottom, 0, tab 1, tab 0, enter. Or you can just left click, right click, enter, That's way faster. Left click, right click, enter. And then when you're finished with all of them, you can add the attributes in a different window. Now, if you happen to have a building that is not perfectly horizontal or perfectly aligned to the north and south directions, that's very simple. You just change the add a rectangle from extent to add a rectangle from 3 points. And this one's very easy. It's just left click one corner, left click the adjacent corner, right click the extent, and again, just enter. Left click the one corner, left click the adjacent corner, right click the extent, and enter. The last building that I wanted to show you is the non-uniform building that's over in the south middle of the map. And this one is click. Wait a sec, sorry, we have to change to this guy right here. So hit escape to cancel that building and then click here. This is the standard polygon tool and it's just clicking the corners of the building. So click each corner of the building, make sure that you go in order so that there's no overlapping. And you don't have to be perfect about this. It's really not that big a deal. You just want the general shape. And then when I'm done, I just right click to close it and click OK. And see, it's not perfect. It doesn't have to be a perfect shape. It just has to get the displacement so that the water has to displace the volume and move around it. That's the point of this. See, none of these are perfect. Okay, the next step will be to add the attributes of those buildings that we just added. So if I right click the polygons and open the attribute table, what I want to do is just sort the fields by collapse and then change this to collapse, add a 0 and click, well, I can just click update all because all my buildings are going to perform the same manner in this particular project. So update all, and then I can hit ARF, that becomes a 1, update all, and then I can change to WRF, that becomes a 0, update all. And now you might want to save because you don't want to lose the work that you just did. And also, there's some buildings in this area that are not actually, that do not actually displace water. So if we sort this by feature type, and then you just, well, let's just move down to the G's, to the garage and pool. There are 2 types of buildings in here that do not need an ARF or a WRF, and that's garages and pools. So if we select the first garage and then just page down to the end of the pools and then select shift and click the next number, it won't be 777 for you because you'll have more buildings in here. Shift click the next number and that will select all those features. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom to those selected features so that you can see them on the map. And you can see here that pools and covered parking are not things that displace water. Okay, so anything that displaces water, the water must move around it, it becomes a building polygon. And you see there'll actually be missing ones in here, so you can go in and take those out. But what we want to do is the ones that we selected using the attribute table, we just want to delete those and then hit that save button, because if you mess this up or you mess up completely, you'll have to come back in, you'll have to redo this. So it's easier just to kind of save this as you go. Now I'm pretty much done, got all the buildings I want. So I'm going to turn the editor off and close the attribute table. If you missed any or you saw some that were missing or you saw some that you just didn't think were important, like this one right here, I mean, how important is this building right here? It's not that important. You know, if it's something small, you can just take it out. And the next step is to calculate the buildings. the area and width reduction factors. So if you come over here and collapse all the tools, click Grid Tools, and then click the button ARF, Evaluate Reduction Factors. We have an external polygon, and our polygon is called Building Polygons. So these are sorted alphabetically, so just hit the B key, it'll take you down to the B's, and then just find Building Polygons. Then you have to set your 3 fields, Collapse, ARF, and WRF, and just click OK. It says there, I already have done this, so you probably won't see this. I'm just going to click yes, and then that's going to start its calculation scheme. It takes, I think, under a minute, but I'm going to just pause the video until it's complete. Okay, once the system has completed its calculation, and the larger the project, the longer this is going to take. So just be patient with it. Click OK, and it'll take even longer if you calculate the WRFs. So that's one of the reasons why I don't do that, because it takes such a long time to calculate the WRFs. So this is now complete. Now let me show you what it did. What it did is it copied all of these polygons to the blocked areas layer. So we now have the same exact outline for the blocked areas layer. It also calculated into the schema layers the ARFs and WRFs. So I'm going to take a turn. We don't need this anymore, so I'll uncheck this, and now you can see what the Flow2D ARF WRF looks like. So if it's this bright yellow color, it's totally blocked. If it's kind of a lesser yellow or a different shade of yellow, it is partially blocked. And that is how the system works, so that when we get rainfall, the rain will rain onto the building and then run off the building. But any of the water that runs, say, across this neighborhood, it would have to run around the building. So anything that's not rainfall that's routed will be routed around those buildings. And I believe that's the last step. Let me check here to assign the buildings. So the next step would be to save and close and run. But we'll just leave that, because that's actually in the next lesson would be run and review. So we'll just leave that, save and run and export, etc., until the next one.